this is Ria. Welcome to Little Stories for Tiny People. Our story today will be a thrilling yet relaxing adventure. It's called Lambden and the Mystery Sleep Vehicle. Take it away, JAYDA.
Remember, there are no pictures. You have to imagine the pictures in your mind. You can imagine them however you want. Okay, here we go.
Lambden finished brushing his teeth and capped his toothpaste. It had been a long day. In Woolcraft's class, he'd tried to follow Mrs. Butterwool's instructions to make a pot holder on his loom.
Push your weaving hook through the warp and begin like so, weaving over and under. Make sure to push your weft loops down for an orderly appearance.
Lambden's potholder did not have an orderly appearance. In fact, Mrs. Butterwool displayed it as a tragic example of what not to do.
Lambden, this is simply for the benefit of others, my dear. Now, students, do you see how his weft loops are crooked? This is a problem resulting from a lack of...
Later, he'd attempted to follow Ms. Brightwool as she led the class through a series of leg lifts in the gymnasium.
And point your hoof, and point, good Willette, point your hoof. Lambden, stay with us, honey.
Lambden was relieved to be done with all that. He clomped into his bedroom and slipped into a pair of moon-print pajamas. He lay down in his bed. In a few moments, he'd press the shiny button beneath his pillow, the button that would take him to a relaxing bedtime journey on his beloved sleep train. But he was in no rush. He closed his eyes, so tired from his day that he felt as if he could fall asleep then and there without moving from his bed. But then he felt something crawling beneath his pillow. Huh? Lambden bolted upright and peeled back his pillow to reveal something that zoomed at his face.
Ow!
Pain shot through Lambden's cheek. A wasp, a tiny, bespectacled wasp wearing a shimmery vest, flew in frenzied circles.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't in the plan.
Lambden clutched his burning cheek with a hoof and glared at the wasp.
Don't report me, please. This is my first week.
You stung me.
That was an accident. I felt threatened.
Get out of my room.
I have an important message to deliver,
the wasp said, flitting in front of Lambden's face. A message? Great. Peering at the wasp, noting her shimmery vest, the promise of a message, Lambden knew exactly who had sent her.
I'm an ambassador for...
At this, the wasp seemed to pause for drama.
The sleep crew,
they said together. The sleep crew, the team responsible for running Lambden's beloved sleep train. The wasp unfolded a tiny paper and adjusted her glasses.
You, Lambden the ship, are one of 24 most sophisticated, loyal,
right,
handsome,
that is not on the paper,
sleep train riders selected to board a brand new, top secret, mystery sleep vehicle.
I am not getting on some experimental sleep vehicle.
Are you still mad about the sting? You know, it's not healthy to hold grudges.
Lambden fought the urge to swat her.
You'll want to hear me out,
the wasp said, alighting on the gleaming sleep train button. Although, wait a second. That wasn't the sleep train button. It had been replaced with a shimmering button in the shape of a question mark. "Hey,"
Oh, this?
the wasp said.
Since you left your window wide open, we brought in our crew this afternoon.
Lambden glanced at his window. It was open a sliver, with just enough gap for an insect to squeeze through. He shook his head in disbelief. "What do you mean you brought in your crew?"
You needed the right button for tonight's sleep adventure.
"I'm not doing a test drive of a sleep vehicle.
Oh, you won't be driving it.
I'm not even boarding it. I'll fall asleep in my own bed. It's not the end of the world. Sheep do it." As Lambden said this, his stomach roiled with disappointment.
Look, if you don't show up, you could be permanently... Oh, no, don't tell him that. Not supposed to. Never mind. I'll be on my way.
The wasp said, lifting into the air. "I'll be permanently what?" The wasp stopped short, hovering a moment before turning to face him in midair.
I'm really not supposed to say.
"She's trying to lure me in," Lambden told himself, like the rest of these ridiculous sleep crew ambassadors. And yet, he couldn't help himself. "Please."
I suppose I could bend the rules just this once to make up for the completely accidental sting. The truth is,
the wasp said, glancing around as if someone could be watching,
if you don't show up for this ride, you'll be permanently blisted.
"Blisted?"
Did I say blisted? I meant listed. It's when you're put on a list of troublesome passengers. If the crew is running out of blankets, they'll give you the scratchiest one.
Lambden winced.
They might seat you next to an undesirable seatmate.
No.
They might even accidentally on purpose disable your button.
Why would they do that?
The sleep crew does many things that are difficult to understand.
Lambden couldn't argue with that. He rubbed at the angry blotch on his cheek, trying to make sense of it all. He'd been so sleepy when he'd first laid down in bed, but now, with this sting, how would he ever get to sleep on his own? And could he really risk this sort of fate, being downgraded on the sleep train? The wasp zipped in slow circles as Lambden considered what to do. "Tell me what this mystery sleep vehicle is."
I can't tell you that. I'm on strict orders.
All aboard, I repeat, all aboard our newest exclusive magical sleep vehicle.
The tinny voice of the sleep crew tour guide came from somewhere beneath Lambden's pillow.
It will loop around your heart and amuse you to no end before lulling you to sleep. Our mystery sleep vehicle is now boarding.
Loop around your heart? Like a go-kart around a track? No. This whole ordeal with the wasp had thrown Lambden off kilter. He felt as if he were casting about for a semblance of solid footing. And finally, he found it. It's a trolley. Yeah, they go on a route, a loop. That'll be fine. Lambden was so relieved that without another thought, he reached out a hoof and pressed the question mark button on his pillow. As he did so, he saw the wasp cringing. It's not a trolley, is it? But Lambden had already clicked his button. A great, swirling cloud streamed upwards.
Ow!
The world was turning. Lambden got to his feet unsteadily. He landed on the cushioned seat of an enormous, spinning teacup.
Whoa.
A dozen other teacups spun nearby, twirling in time with the strange music. Just when Lambden thought he might become reacquainted with the carrot stew he'd had for dinner, the teacup slowed to a stop. and a little gate opened in its side. Shakily, he tumbled out. Dark, motionless rides loomed over him. In a nearby game booth, garish clown dolls were still and silent. Enormous overhead signs in the shape of arrows lit up all at once, pointing down at a red carpet rolled out before Lambden's hoofs. He hesitated, looking back at the spot in the sky where he must have dropped from the portal in his pillow. There was no way back. He stepped onto the red carpet.
History of dizziness, particularly when upside down?
No?
Diagnosable fear of high speeds, heights, or collisions with birds?
Not that I know of.
Incompatibility with bright and or flashing lights?
I guess not.
History of heart palpitations?
I should turn around, Lambden thought. He now stood before the towering moose, the sleep crew's tour guide, who peered at him over the edge of a clipboard in front of a nondescript, box-like building. He looked back longingly at the red carpet that had taken him through what felt like a maze across the darkened amusement park.
Lambden. History of heart palpitations?
Was it Lambden's imagination, or was his heart palpitating at that very moment? He reluctantly turned back. No.
And lastly, do you have an allergy to sugar?
Sugar?
All I need is a yes or no, Lambden.
The moose consulted her wristwatch.
My dear, you are the last to arrive, and we do have a schedule to keep.
Lambden stared up at the sign above the door behind the moose that read, "The Dragon's Lair."
Lambden, as you know, this is a test run of our new sleep vehicle. We need this information for our records. Now then, allergy to sugar?
Lambden sighed. There was no use. Even if he could find his way back to the spinning teacups, how would he ever get back to his bedroom? And how would he ever get to sleep with the wasp sting burning his face? I do not have an allergy to sugar.
Congratulations, Lambden. You are cleared for entry.
With a flourish, the moose swung open the door and waved him inside. It was pitch dark in the building. Lambden couldn't even see his hoof in front of his face. But as soon as the moose led him inside, he could hear the sleep passengers chattering.
Do you think it's a tram?
I was thinking a log flume. Step forward, Lambden. Your seat is just ahead of you,
the moose said, guiding him by the elbow. Lambden tripped as his hoof met a new surface. Metal. He stumbled again and half fell into a seat that felt like a bench.
Hello?
Whispered someone inches away. It had to be Lambden's seatmate. All at once, a bar lowered across their laps. Lambden felt a pit in his stomach. What had he gotten himself into?
Guest. Hello,
came the towering moose's voice through a speaker.
Welcome to our brand new cutting-edge fur, wool, and whisker raising, yet slumber begetting.
The moose paused, and there was the sound of a lever being pulled. The darkness was flooded with light.
Sleep, dragon.
Lambden's eyes slowly adjusted to the bright lights. He saw a long chain of two-row seats.
It's a roller coaster,
shouted an ardent aardvark. It was, indeed, a roller coaster in the shape and style of a dragon. There was a period of commotion as the passengers came to terms with their fates.
I am extremely alarmed by this,
cried a worried wombat.
I see.
"Unhand me at once, you fools," cried a theatrical turtle. But a few passengers were thrilled.
I can't wait. I'm a thrill seeker.
What a sparkling opportunity.
Including Lambden.
This is so cool.
He'd been hooked on roller coasters ever since he went to Sheep World as a lamb. Every ounce of his worry melted away. Even the sting in his cheek seemed to subside.
I don't know about this,
murmured Lambden's now visible seatmate, an alarmed-looking goat. "It'll be great," Lambden said with a grin. "It's like a high-speed sleep train." Martleby ambled along the platform beside the roller coaster. Fuzzy, weighted, or fashion-forward cheetah print. "Weighted, please," Lambden said, gratefully accepting his blanket. But it wasn't quite a blanket. It had holes in which to put one's arms and buckles around the back.
Yes. Hello.
Lambden could see the towering moose seated in the first row.
Our team of sartorial experts created these blanket vests specifically for this new sleep experience. Please have your seatmate assist you in buckling your vest. Think of it as both a comforting and trust-building exercise.
Lambden chuckled to himself as he and his seatmate helped each other buckle into the blanket vests. When the sound of buckles clasping had petered out, the sleep dragon lurched to life and rumbled forward. Lambden relaxed into his seat and breathed in the scent of grapefruit drifting from Delilah the rabbit's mist machine up in one of the first rows.
I am positively tickled pink to introduce this top-secret sleep vehicle to you, our most sophisticated sleepers. Our team has been working tirelessly 27 hours a day for the last year to bring it to fruition.
Let me escape, please.
Drink up that mischievous crescent moon. Our first performance will surely make your heart flip.
The sleep dragon exited the building through a tunnel and emerged outdoors, close to the ground. The sky was the color of ink, and a sliver of moon hung like a crooked smile. Stars twinkled as if enchanted. Lambden settled into his seat. He couldn't believe he had been so worried about this. The first 2 stops were mesmerizing. There was a show featuring 3 miniature Ferris wheels side by side, each about 4 feet tall. Lambden laughed with surprise as hamsters popped their heads up from the Ferris wheel's little seats. Each one wore a red vest and a green cap upon its head.
Aren't they darling?
I love them.
The hamsters began leaping from one Ferris wheel to the next. Soon, there were dozens of hamsters somersaulting in what seemed like an orchestrated fashion, each one landing with confidence. The 3 spinning Ferris wheels, the swirl of the lights, the vaulting hamsters combined for a hypnotizing effect. Next, Lambden learned why he'd had to assert so strongly that he did not, in fact, have an allergy to sugar. The sleep dragon eased to a stop overlooking an enormous metal bowl encircled by 3 large crows. One of the crows pulled a lever on the bowl and it began to spin. The sleep passengers leaned over the left side of the coaster to get a better look. Wisps of pink billowed from a central cavity in the bowl. The crows took turns dipping wooden sticks along the curve of the bowl to catch the wisps.
What is that?
Lambden whispered.
By golly, it's cotton candy,
cried the theatrical turtle. The crows began passing it out to the passengers.
Delicious.
So sweet.
No, thank you. I don't want to get a cavity,
said a responsible gerbil. Lambden eagerly accepted his cotton candy. It was so good. Once clouds of candy were passed all around, the crows bowed and waved them on their way, and the sleep dragon rumbled into the night. Lambden got a few more bites of his treat before it vanished from his hoof.
Oh.
Hey, I was eating that.
The mild performances calmed the anxious passengers a bit, although there were still some holdouts.
I would still like to be unhanded.
I am still somewhat moderately alarmed by this.
But up to this point, the sleep dragon seemed less like a roller coaster than a narrow, open-air train. Lambden longed for something more like rocket wool, the roller coaster he'd ridden last summer, which took its riders through a series of tight spirals. So he was thrilled when the sleep dragon sped up and began its first real climb.
Yes, we hope you enjoyed that delectable detour, but now it's time to breathe some fire into this journey.
This is what I was dreading.
This is what I was hoping for.
As the sleep dragon made its way up the incline, clacking as it went, Lambden could make out the shadows of a Ferris wheel and several topsy-turvy rides. He wondered what the park was like in daylight, with animals milling about. At length, the coaster reached the top of its climb. The theatrical turtle fainted. Some animals squeezed their eyes shut. Lambden kept his eyes open, wondering, vaguely, how this would ever put him to sleep. For a few seconds, the sleep dragon was motionless at the topmost point of the hill. Lambden gazed out at the beautiful starry night sky. It felt as if he were part of it, perching on a cloud. Then they were off, rushing down the drop. It was glorious. The sleep dragon seemed to pick up more and more speed, and Lambden could see a loop zooming towards them. He heard the towering moose sounding very far away.
Get ready for the sleep experience of a lifetime.
The world was a blur as the roller coaster hurtled upwards again. Lambden was weightless for the briefest moment as the sleep dragon turned completely upside down. And the roller coaster came to an abrupt halt, upside down. The responsible gerbil, too tiny to be held by the lap bar, fell from his seat, plummeting downwards, landing on a net far below.
I'm okay.
The towering moose's voice crackled from the speakers.
Isn't this a fascinating little interlude? All planned, of course. Our team of scientists assures me that getting a healthy blood flow to the upper regions of one's body can improve sleep for the most stubborn sleepers. We'll be resuming our travels in just a minute, after our team of engineers takes a gander at the mechanics. All routine of...
Lambden couldn't focus on the moose. He felt the blood rushing to his head as he dangled upside down, pinned in place by a measly lap belt. Somehow, the sting in his cheek, which he'd successfully put out of his mind, burned anew. Everyone was wide awake, bathed in soft light from the moon, which, from an upside-down vantage point, looked less like a smile and more like a frown. That's when the bats attacked.
What is happening?
If this is all planned, why does it feel so terrifying?
Well, the bats didn't quite attack.
Oops, sorry.
Didn't mean to knock into you there.
The passengers slowly came to understand that these uniformed bats were meant to be there. They had toolboxes and serious expressions, and they quickly went to work examining the roller coaster. Peaceful music drifted from the speakers, and the towering moose pressed on, determined to make sure everyone knew this was 100% a planned upside-down stop, as the bats fiddled with the coaster.
This is precisely what we aim for at the Sleep Crew. A break from the wild motions of life. It's imperative that we stop in our tracks now and then to get a new perspective. And what is a newer perspective than one that is flipped entirely? We spend so much of our time heads up. It's crucial that we also get the sense of what the world looks like from...
"Prom fixed," one of the bats called out. The rest of them nodded. "There was just a loose..."
Never mind that,"
the moose trilled from her seat in the first row. The bats gathered their tools and fluttered away. The Sleep Dragon passengers heaved a collective sigh of relief.
We at the Sleep Crew hope you enjoyed that brief, planned stop, and we do hope it gave you a new and enriching perspective on life. Now then, as they say, what goes upside down must come right side up.
The coaster began to move. Lambden felt the soothing warmth of his blood traveling from his head down through his limbs as the sleep dragon righted itself and traveled along a straightaway. Passengers started yawning, oddly relaxed by the upside-down episode. The sleep dragon went swiftly along its track beneath the moonlit sky, the stars bright against the dark night. Lambden felt himself relax into his seat once more, relieved to be done with excitement for the evening. He loved roller coasters, but not at bedtime. Peaceful music drifted from the speakers, and he was content to slip off to sleep, the thrills behind him. But then the sleep dragon began another climb.
Yes, we hope you enjoy this most thrilling and most top secret segment of our brand new sleep experience.
"Oh no," Lambden muttered. The passengers around him expressed their disapproval. "Can we just skip this part and go to sleep?"
I don't want to be upside down again.
But the coaster continued its climb. Again, the passengers had a full view of the amusement park as they reached the apex of the track. Lambden looked out at the gorgeous night sky, and just as he felt the weightlessness at reaching the pinnacle, seemingly the highest point in the whole park, he got a look at the sliver of moon, which once again looked playfully crooked. Then the sleep dragon dipped into a mad rush down the track. The coaster seemed to pick up even more speed as it traveled upwards, moving rapidly into yet another loop.
Not again.
I still wish to be unhanded.
The sleep dragon zoomed into a spiral, and just as Lambden and everyone else was turned upside down once more, there was a bright, flashing light and sparks, and Lambden thought the entire ride was about to collapse. And Lambden opened his eyes and had to pinch himself. The sleep dragon drifted smoothly through thick, sparkling fog on all sides. He looked around, but there was nothing but mist in every direction.
Yes, hello. We hope you enjoyed that trip through our proprietary loop-de-loop portal. We are now inside of a cloud, specially concocted by our team of experts, of course. Now we do ask...
Lambden turned to see his seatmate, out cold. His own mind grew fuzzy, As he stared at the glittering fog, he breathed it in and felt a sense of profound calm overtake him. The sting on his cheek was forgotten. The tiredness of his limbs fell away. How did he feel so at peace after so much excitement? Lambden's eyes drifted closed. His mind quieted.
On a scale of 1 to 26, how relaxing was your top secret sleep journey last night?
Lambden's eyes fluttered open. Morning light streamed in the window.
I'll just repeat that for you. On a scale of 1 to 26, how relaxing was your...
Lambden sat up in bed. The wasp, who had rather unprofessionally stung him on the cheek the day before, hovered in the air with a clipboard.
We do need the answers to these questions since this was a test run of our new technology.
Lambden sighed, trying to come up with an accurate rating for a ride that included both a perilous upside-down interlude and a calming, sparkling cloud that had given him a surprisingly restful night's sleep. I'll split the difference. 19.8.
19.8? Sir, we're really looking for scores 22 and above. Care to amend your rating? Sir?
Lambden just smiled and headed downstairs to get ready for the day. I hope you give my story at least a 19.8, but let's be real, I'll accept anything over an 18.2. I hope you enjoyed the story. Little Stories for Tiny People is written, performed, and produced by me, Rhea Pector. My in-house tech director, Peter K., puts my stories on the internet for all of you to enjoy. Thank you to my Little Stories premium subscribers for making it possible for me to keep doing this. Thank you to JAYDA for the super important reminder message at the beginning.
And thank you to the many premium subscribers who supplied sound effects used in this story. Thank you to Matthew, Elliot, Lewis, Betty, Livia, Frida, Riley, the Kinders and the Firsties, Abbott, Basil, Holden, Tenny, Indy, Pia, Yachim, Zora, Ellie, Claire, Lillian, Sage, and David. And thank you, as always, for listening in.